Hello and welcome into Football.Fun with Laird. I am Andrew Laird, joined today by Adam from FDF to talk about what's happening. Adam, thanks for coming back.
Hello, thanks for having me back. Always a pleasure. How are you guys doing?
It's great. It's great so far. We've seen some of the we have more players on the platform now. We're going to get into how a few more come on. The one thing I wanted to get to, so I don't even want to wait for it, of the question of today's October 1st. You guys have released 100 players. Originally, we had 20 more added through the second Founders Packs.
Yep.
Are we where you thought we'd be by October 1st?
Yeah. We did slow the releases down a little bit, just because we were doing so much with the game loop. We did quite a bit of surgery to simplify the game, and also make the rewards just give them to people, don't make them do the steps, which was just early feedback we took on board. So yeah, we wanted to introduce new players with that kind of excitement at a time when we actually had the better game loop. It's not finished yet. I think we've still got extra stuff we want to do, but I think it's certainly easier to understand than it was. And also you get the rewards when you get them out of the pack, pretty much straight away. So just easier. But yeah, we're also going to do another 20. So there's going to be another wave of Founders Packs soon. But then something we might talk about today is that we're going to then throw this to our scouting mechanism, which is the long-term real way of getting new players gradually onto the platform.
Yeah, I think I've got a lot of, I'd like to talk about that quite a bit, because that was one of the things that I think maybe I just misunderstood it originally when we talked about it months ago, before everything was live essentially. But back to the whole elimination basically of skill points, was that something that you guys had anticipated would have to happen, or was it just once it got into practice it was maybe this isn't working how we thought it was going to work?
It was the latter. It just didn't work the way we'd hoped it would. I think it kind of works for a casual audience, particularly because they would just kind of accept that they got the skill rating that they got. But a lot of the players we have at the moment are enthusiast grade. And for those guys, they were just I don't understand this. I don't want a black box system that I can't figure out. I want to be able to maximize and optimize. And that is our audience. We want those people to be happy. So we just made that change. I think it's also something we didn't get time to test extensively in beta. So it came in, it was tested, but only in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the Club World Cup, where, that's not everyone's favorite league. So there was limited engagement, and we had a test group of people and they went, yeah, this is kind of fine. And we're like, okay. And in hindsight, we should have gone, well, okay, why aren't they saying they love it? They just said, this is fine. So yeah, we just made the change because we recognized it wasn't right.
I will say that there were 2 or 3 people that have been that joined the platform after the beta that I talked to quite a bit, and they kind of had a similar response of just like you said, they kind of felt like it was a black box of, oh, I have these I have these shares, but then I have to use these skill, and it was then why didn't they figure this out in the beta? And there were a couple of us who have been since the beta, and it was I don't even know how you would try to test that out in the beta. And I think one of the aspects that we keep bringing up is once money's involved, everything changes and people play the game really differently. And so, like you said, of getting a response of oh yeah, it's fine, I think is just very different when there wasn't necessarily anything at stake. And then once there is, it's oh wait, I feel very passionate about this.
People behave very differently. They just behave differently. So it's quite similar to if you've ever seen people playing poker for matchsticks. They're just crazy. They're just doing everything. whereas they're much more cautious and measured and considered, and they care way more about their decisions, which also means they need way more. So like suddenly they need way more information that they never really mentioned before. But this is just normal. So to an extent, I expected like this whole theme of like, hey, we're going to launch Pro. It's going to be a little bit sticky. And then 2 or 3 months down the line, we're really like the engineers are fast. They move fast. So the game is good. Like people are enjoying it, but it's way behind where it is in my head as to like what it should be. But I think my timeline is it will get better every month, and within 2-3 months, I think we will get to the version of Pro that we're like proud to say, okay, this is the game, this is what we're sticking with. Because one thing we did want to do as well is like avoid being that game that changes everything all the time. But you do have to get to a point of stability where that is true. I think early on you do have to be quite responsive and rapid because you're learning a lot in that early stage.
I think one of the part of the feedback that I've gotten is at least when you guys recognize that there is kind of an issue or some sort of bottleneck, like you guys want to address it quickly because you don't want users who are frustrated at something that isn't working, but also, like you said, you don't want to be the company that has to change all the time. I will give you the benefit of the doubt that I give SoRare also, of like, you guys are doing something that really hasn't been done before, and you're trying, you clearly have learned lessons from other companies, but it's not like you can just go and be like, oh, it worked over here, so that marketplace worked along with their fantasy game, and we'll just do that. Like, you guys are,
it is a different experience and a completely different economic model.
Right.
So yeah, we are. It's not necessarily comparable. There'd be no point just like replicating what other products have done. Like, you've got to actually build your own thing and try something new. Otherwise, you're not really offering the world anything worthwhile. So yeah, we live and breathe this stuff, and we play it ourselves. So if there's something wrong, we do tend to notice like quite quickly, and we also listen very carefully to the feedback that we get as well.
Was there one thing like specifically that you guys got the feedback on that surprised you, that didn't work how you, either it wasn't working how you thought, or it was, and the response to it was surprisingly negative on it? Not that anybody's been like overly negative on it, but just like something that people are like, hey, maybe this doesn't work the way we want it to work.
Yeah, I mean, certainly like I guess the packs, because the packs worked really well in free to play. So this is a good example of like, in free to play, people liked the pack timer. They were like, hey, every 4 hours, I'm going to go and open my pack. So we were like, okay, how do we make that true in Pro? Because people like it. So we came up with this idea of, oh, you can still open them every 4 hours. So you get that sort of discovery moment. But then to keep the economy not insane, you actually have these skill points, which allow you to like promote, which is like the gate for real value. So we tried to like retain something people liked in free, but actually that led to us making something that people didn't like. They were like, actually, I feel like I've earned this reward now, and because it's real money, I just want it now. And that is different from the feedback you get in the free game. So yeah, it is just, as you said, like, once you introduce real money to things, it completely changes all of it. And then you've got to go through this process of like rebalancing. So like contracts is another. Contracts really are just there as like a catch-all for people who don't really do anything. Like, we don't want people sitting on things for like 10 years and just like farming rewards without actually playing the game. But 4 matches comes around way quicker than you think for like top athletes. It's like, can be 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah.
So yeah, that just was like way too fast. So we're having to like, we've basically like put those into the background now. So like they're still there, but they're very trivial. And we need to like bring that in a way which meets the original purpose, but doesn't actually get in the way of the real players who are trading. And so you can like, by playing the game, you'll be able to earn free contracts and just basically like refresh them, so that as you play, you're like, hey, I've just earned another thing. And it's like, you keep it going, you keep your own little wheel going for free. just by gameplay. It was never really meant to be like a cost that you had to factor in to your ROI calculation or anything. So again, in free to play, no one mentioned contracts. They were like, "Oh, cool, sounds fine." But then as soon as it's real money, it becomes a whole different thing. But that's okay. We're learning as we go, you know.
So, admittedly, I don't play the free game because I play pro. But somebody showed me the market, like the free to play, essentially player prices or share prices, and they are quite different than the pro game. And obviously, it just seems like they're two different markets and ecosystems. But do you attribute that to just people are playing the game very differently because of what is at stake in one versus the other?
Yeah. And also like people buy and sell in pro for different reasons. You know, they might just be like trading not entirely to do with the tournament. Certainly like when we had that very peak of hype, people were just like, oh my God, like that weekend in August, people were just coming in and buying anything. Whereas you just don't have that mania on free to play. You know, they're probably more playing just for the tournaments. So I'm just looking at the prices now on free, and you know they're not insane. Like you've still got like Yamal and Mbappe and Haaland and Kane at the top.
Yeah.
I would look at this as a kind of normal user and go, okay, these prices reasonably make sense. But yeah, they are different from the pro version. I think pro is not really a settled market. The prices are not rational at the moment, and I think that's kind of a good thing. Like I think if you're a new player looking at that, like if I was me and I wasn't actually building this thing, I was a player, assuming I'd looked at the product and gone, okay, I quite like this, I'm going to give it a try. I'd be then looking at that, you know, the kind of rationality in the market and looking at some of the players at the bottom and going, okay, I think actually that is underpriced, and that because that's my personality type. I'm more likely to do that than go and just buy Yamal, and like try and find the value in that. So, you know, it is a trading game. So like, what I'd like to do is get to a point where like all price drops are not bad, and like selling is not bad. Selling is part of the game, and as long as the player is good, like you will always find someone else who will come in and pick that player back up again at some point.
Okay. Let's get into the scouting feature, because I'm curious if you guys adjusted your plan for the scouting feature. And like I said before, maybe I misunderstood it back when we talked about it months ago, but it felt like it was initially, once we have 200 players in the game, the scouting feature is kind of used for almost like replacing any of the 200 that happen to leave, whether they retire, they transfer to Galatasaray or wherever. And now it seems like we're going to get up to 140 players from the founders packs. And is the idea to use the scouting feature for the next 60, or is that number kind of just up in the air for how many you'll add? Presumably fewer than more.
So yeah, I think 200 is like a good target. Like the game. So we played beta with about 200 players, and it plays well. Like you get a good chance of winning, but you've got a good variety of players. So 200 to 250 is like the target in my head of like where we would get to, and we'd use the scouting mechanism to allow the players themselves to decide who should be next. Like who is the most exciting players that you want to trade and own. We have developed the scouting, and it's going to be more of a game than I originally thought. It started life as a sort of way to choose players. It's actually going to be a more of a game in itself, which might actually be, you know, I think it will be more targeted at the hardcore user.
Scouting usually is.
Scouting usually is, because if you and I got our group chats together, we will probably find that 80% of people are like, yeah, scouting, we love scouting. Like that's what we really want to do. It's probably the other way if you ask a mainstream fantasy sports group chat, like we're the nerds here, and that's fine. But you know, you still want somewhere for those enthusiasts to go, and they can actually be, they're providing a good service because they're choosing which are the best players. They are genuinely scouting for the rest, so that when they, you know, they're kind of vetting the players to make sure they're actually worthwhile of a slot on the platform. But also that's what they may enjoy this more than the main platform. Actually, there'll be a wider selection of players. We advanced it in a key way because we thought it was too boring. In internal testing, we were just like, this is fine, but it's not exciting us. So in the early version, it was just kind of like you had some scouting points or tokens, and you could say, right, I think Rashford should join the platform, so I'm going to put my tokens on him. And if everyone agrees, it's kind of just like a popularity contest of like, oh, if everyone's scouting Rashford, he must be the most worthy or popular player. And so he will be able to like enter the promotion race. So you'd have like 3 players in the promotion race that week, and the people who bought the most of that player, they decide which one is the most popular. Fine. But we were going through it and like, it's like, this just isn't that fun. And it wasn't actually related to the performances. It was actually just a popularity contest. Sure. So the direction we've taken it is actually very similar to the main game, just with a different subset of players and not based on US dollars. So imagine Football.Fun, but there's a much wider roster. And you can basically buy and sell the players that you think are like the best to scout. Same dynamic liquid market, just not for US dollars. And then they will perform. So there'll be a live performance screen, and they will all get ranked in the exact same scoring system as the main platform. And basically, if you are owning the players that are performing well, it will increase your early allocation. So like if you're right and you've held Rashford throughout his time at Barcelona, you were there for like the Newcastle game where he scored 2 goals and he was like the top performing player in scouting, then you'd have racked up some points on Rashford, which would basically qualify you for the equivalent of like the Founders Pack, but just for Rashford. So the purpose is like dynamic trading. You might have also been the guy who called Rashford doing well at Barcelona 3 months ago, and you might have just sold like your Rashford to get more tokens. So it's not going to be based on USDC. It's probably going to be based on our own like token, like just for the purpose of it. So it's not like real cash. And it'll just be like a really more quick fire, dynamic, chaotic version of Football.Fun, if that makes sense.
And does that eventually lead to like a drop like we see now with these 20, but it's just one player instead?
It's just one player. It could be multiple in the week. So like a contest for that is triggered if there is a slot available on the platform. And then, yeah, you would effectively get equivalent to the starting price, or like equivalent of getting them out of the Founders Pack. But to earn that, you had to scout them. So it would only be for the guys who actually were there when that player won and were owning that player in the scouting version of the game.
It seems like you guys take a good amount of effort to figure out like what's fun to do versus just what's fun to win, which is kind of encouraging. Like you said, the process was fine. And I think from the user perspective, from the pro user perspective, like, hey, I can get this new guy at the bottom price. Like that's a positive for users. And that's rewardingly fun. But if it's boring to work to get to that fun, then it doesn't feel worth it, I guess.
Like there are 2 reasons people play these games. One is like the entertainment factor and also like the social factor of like prediction, like proving you were right and like talking to your friends about it. The second is money. But if you want money, get a job. Like that is the easiest way. The easiest way to make money is to get a job, or do something else. Like we have to be really entertaining in everything we do, and you've got to want to do this. Just because it makes you money is not, that we're not competing against like bank accounts on interest rates. We've got to be entertaining. So yeah, it just wasn't it didn't feel like it hit our bar for like
Mhm.
really, really exciting experience. I think this will, because um, it's the trading we know is fun. Like everyone likes to trade players. This will be like an even more kind of liquid, lower fees, faster trading, using a token, not US dollars, with a much wider range of players that you can select. So definitely targeted at like the more niche audience, but they're still a very important audience, and they tend to be like very high spend as well. So even if you got 10,000 users on that platform, it would be incredible and fun, I think.
So you were saying that like it's a different token than USDC in order to participate in the scouting. Is it still like, are we still buying in, or is it essentially a free to play part of the game?
It would be a bought token, so we will have our own token on the platform. That's the Sport.Fun token. So that's the actual top name of our company, because one day we will add a few other sports and whatnot. And it will be the same token that you use for all these things. So like if we do a basketball game, you would use that to like scout basketball players in future as well. So this is a way of like making it a little bit more kind of less serious, I think, than USDC. Even though you've bought in to get some fun token, it's just not the same. And it also allows us to like seed a wider market without needing another $3 million, because seeding seeding the market is not a trivial task. But seeding it with fun token that we printed ourselves, we can easily just get 500 players there onto the platform, and people can buy in and trade the fun token that way.
So looking at the next couple of months, I guess, because I've had a number of people who I think ended up with a negative experience of everything that happened when the founders, or excuse me, when the launches started, whether they saw the huge number go up and then bought at that point, and then they're not as happy now, or they just didn't want to get in on that type of volatility. And basically what I've been telling them is like, it's okay to wait. Like,
Yeah.
you're not necessarily getting in at the bottom or in a low point or high, but if you just wait until everything is settled, all of the players on the platform, like then you can decide whether that's what you want to play. Is there kind of a time frame where in your head of where we get to, or excuse me, when we get to 200 players and everything just kind of settles a little bit, player wise at least?
Yeah, I mean, that is good advice. Actually, if you look at the login screen, ever since day one, it has a notice there which just says, "Hey, this is crypto. The early market is going to be volatile. Like, if this is not for you, then play later or play free to play." So we knew it was going to be like this. It's actually a good thing in crypto Twitter. Like any marketing guy in crypto will say, you definitely want that big run up, and because then everyone knows who you are at least.
Mm.
And if you did run up slowly, cool, but you don't get the attention, you don't get the brand recognition. Now we do. The downside is that everyone is then comparing you to that weekend where everyone just piled in. Not everyone, actually, it's not even that high. Like 150 million market cap. It's not a real number, by the way. Like it's just kind of maths and convention. So like what really happened is we started with $2 million in the market. It went up to about 9 million. And then it's come down to about 4.5 million. Right. That's not actually that crazy. But because market cap does that from 2 million to 168 and then down to 30, this is the perception. But
Sure.
everyone uses market cap in crypto, so you kind of have to. But it is actually it's not a real number. Like if you look at the real money in the market, it wasn't that dramatic. But I would definitely say to people, in any crypto project, if something runs up that high, do not follow it. Like it will come down. What you find is that you then get the lull, and if a product proves that it's good and it's got legs, then yeah, it can run up again, and often higher than it was before. But yeah, like if it's a time, if you're uncomfortable with it, certainly don't follow into pumps, and just go in with either use the free to play or with an amount of money that you're comfortable with, and do it when it's quiet and you see value, and don't do it on the sort of big promotion days or anything like that. So I think for like full, when is this product like, when would I be really proud to like go out and say, right, this is the time to get in and like come and play? I would probably say about 2-3 months in my head of like where I really think it will have settled and will have got all the features we want. And I've got this idea of like FDF 2.0 in my head, which I'm working on with the product team, which like, because if you look at the app now, it's like we've got a leaderboard that doesn't go anywhere. We've got a rep system that is currently meaningless. All of things are working, like they are there for a reason, like they are foundational, but they are yet to be tied to like a so what element of like, why do I need a high rep score?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to answer those questions, and then it will start to feel a lot more like joined together. One of the things a lot of people are waiting for is the buybacks. So that should have like it will have like a notable economic impact. So this is where we use a proportion of trading fees to basically buy shares off market and put them back in the reward pool, which acts as like the counterbalance to the issuance. So if you're throwing new shares out every week, which is not actually that many, by the way, I did an article on this, and it's not really the case that supply is like growing massively. It's actually quite modest, but psychologically, people are like, oh, this feels like my assets will depreciate all the time. But now they will know, oh, also the company are buying some and they're putting them back. So it turns it into like a loop. And we've had some like, we've done the maths on like what impact that has. And also some community sites have done the maths on it as well. So someone made an FDF buyback site, which I'll link to you in the chat, which is really cool, which basically simulates what the market would look like with a certain amount of buyback. And it is dramatic, even though it might be like, only, I mean, say our fee is 4% as it is now on a buy, and we'd be doing 40% of that, so about 1.8%, but compounded, it actually makes a very, very dramatic impact. So this is actually in testing now, like secretly. So it is working, but we're just not putting the actual money in it. We're just letting it tell us what it would have done.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we do expect from next week that we will start turning this on, and it will have quite a dramatic impact on like the general support of the market. It's not going to be a thing where like we turn it on and the whole market goes green. That would be stupid. It is gradual support, and it comes in behind real trading. So it doesn't come in. I don't just go and say, "Hey, bot, buy Yamal."
Right.
It waits for users, like real players, to buy Yamal and other players, and then it basically kind of backfills, and by a percent. So it's actually the users who are deciding what happens. And some of that will be like forward facing. So like once it's turned on, from that point, when everyone trades a certain player, it will like put that 40% of their fees in. But we're also going to be doing some backfilling. So all the fees we collected during that big run up, we're going to be doing like on a discretionary basis, re-injecting some of that like back into the market as well, which is just replacing what we would have done. Two reasons we didn't do this from the start is, one, we hadn't built it yet. Like we just prioritized other features. Second of all, it's really best to do this when the market is relatively stable, rather than during that like massive hype spike. But yeah, I think this will make like quite a notable difference to like the market, I think.
And I guess from the user perspective, the higher the number of fees that you guys collect, some of that obviously goes into a future buyback.
Correct.
Pool as well.
And programmatically as well, or like automatically. So yeah, if you see, oh, loads of people sold X today, you also know that that's going to have a cushion at some point as well. So yeah, and like people are already looking back at like the historic trade volume and saying, oh, loads of people sold this player. So obviously, like Yamal has the highest trade volume on him, so he will benefit the most from like the historic buybacks because it's based on like historical volume. So people are already trying to work out like what that would mean. But this is like a really good third party tool for looking at how it works.
Yeah, I saw once the talk starts about buybacks, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, buybacks are happening. And then it's like, well, when are they happening? And everyone's like, oh, surely they're soon, which for most people means like yesterday. And they're like, wait, why haven't the buybacks happened yet? But I like, I think what you said, it can't, like, we can't ignore that. Like, you can't do it all at once because that ends up being almost detrimental to the market. Like, obviously, it number goes up, but all of a sudden, um,
Yeah.
it feels like it just creates chaos if it happens that way.
Yeah, and you also want to do it at a time when you've got like the really sticky players left, who are actually gonna play the game.
Yeah.
The retention on the game is really good actually. So like in like cohorts of players, the guys who were playing like through beta and during and before that big hype spike in August, 80% of guys are still playing as defined by people who are making trades by like week 7. Which is incredibly high. And of the 40% who joined after, of the guys who joined after that spike, 40% are still playing. So it's not entirely true that they were all just tourists. Like a lot of them have stuck. It's like industry standard of like a good retention rate would probably be about 20-25%. So it's really strong. But I just think we need to. I think like this period of stability in September has actually been quite good in some ways. I think it allows people time to like get used to the idea. It gives us time to like make the product better. And then yeah, we've got a big roadmap ahead as well.
Do you define like those who are not active anymore, those who like sold up and took their money with them, or is it still just kind of sitting on the platform where their shares are there and maybe the contract's expired, but they're still technically here?
It's a bit of a mix. What is really interesting is that the easy narrative was that, oh, crypto Twitter tourists came and dumped on us. The data is actually different. The data is that our OG beta players dumped on crypto Twitter. So because these guys had all the original founders packs and they had like big size. So when we looked at like the list of right, okay, who is dumping, like it wouldn't actually take. You could have a red day on the market because 2 guys decided to cash out. So we've had, because they had such like big early allocations from playing the beta.
Sure.
And on one hand, you're like, well, cool, they played the beta, they supported the product. Why can't they have a big payday? So some of these guys made like 80 grand, $100,000. And for the most part, they then came back in with like a smaller size, which was kind of more manageable for them because we've got 80% of them still playing.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily help us because it gave a lot of crypto Twitter guys, like tourists, it gave them a bad experience. The people who came in and got dumped on had a bad experience and may or may not come back. It depends. But this is like part of the course of crypto products. We can't sit here going, oh, don't dump guys, don't make money, because you don't know. That's why they're here. They're perfectly entitled to do that. Second of all, you don't know their personal circumstances. For some of them, like making $100,000 is the best thing that ever happened to them in their entire life. And you can't really ask them to hold that if that's like, doubling their net worth. But a lot of them sort of, the guys I saw doing that will tend to sort of come back in with 10 or 20K and still play the product because they're probably like very well disposed to Football.Fun now. They made a lot of money playing the game. They will often sort of then become your biggest super fans. So what we didn't want to do was like demonize them for like dumping. I don't think it really works.
Thinking back to what you were saying about people joining in the run up and how dramatic that run up was. Did you guys consider what the run up would have been had there not been buy limits on everyone? Like, I think that's one of the things that people forget, that the number went up very quickly and very high, but there were fairly significant buy limits for people who wanted to come in and spend a ton of money.
At
And
that time, you couldn't spend more than $5,000 on Yamal, and yeah, I can only speculate, but some guy would have come in and lumped 500K into Yamal, right? Almost certainly. We could have gone like, it actually really doesn't take a lot of money to get you to $1 billion market cap.
yeah,
Um, it could have been very silly. Like, frankly, like, and I think we probably did our job of like, we got attention, we got people talking about us, we went up high enough. But I think if you had have gone to $1 billion, you would have still fallen just as hard, and you've got then further to fall, and then you've got even further to get. Like, on your second run up, you've got to go even higher before people stop talking about that last candle. So I think it's probably a good thing. Like, we put the buy limits on for a reason, which is actually the worst outcome would have been that guy came in and bought $1 million of Yamal and didn't sell, because then one guy would be the Yamal baron for the rest of the life of this product, and we didn't want that to happen. So people thought we were nuts for putting buy limits on. No one uses buy limits in crypto. Pretty much only us. But I genuinely think for like long-term health, that was probably the best thing we could have done.
Now, the Yamal Baron, is that more negative to the market, even if they hold, or is it just that they dominate anytime they dominate tournament points every time Yamal finishes first?
That and then so it makes Yamal like unattractive to hold, because you're just not getting like the reward. But they can also just manipulate the price. They become their opinion becomes the biggest determinant of whether Yamal goes up or down. When you have a much wider user base, it becomes the collective opinion, which tends to be much more accurate and right. So yeah, it would be a real bad thing. So yeah, we just wanted to keep that true, and the buy limits are still on, by the way. I think one of the things that I'm looking forward to about buybacks is that once you've got that like economic loop back in, you can afford to start relaxing some of the restrictions. So we could loosen up the buy limits. We can probably start reducing the surge fees. We'll probably step the fees down again to 3% and see from 4%, and like see if that's the right number. There's actually not really a noticeable difference from like moving fees from 5 to 4. Like, it just kind of, it's not really big enough for people to like care. But it's still actually a 20% reduction. But yeah, I think we will start. We'll get the buybacks in. We'll start reducing those restrictions, the buy limits, the fees, the surge fees, and probably step the fees down to 3. And then this will also just result in like easier trading, easier to play. I still think it's like too hard at this point to like really curate your team and like trade. We're still in this, what I think of as like the initiation phase, and I'm kind of waiting to unleash it a bit, like, kind of take these restrictions off, get the product features we think we need. And I think it will feel like a very different game in a month or 2 months time from now, I think.
Did you consider, and I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know how technically easy this is, but I also come from a place, my last job at Sorter Data, where like everything was, anything's possible. But was there any thought of having a different fee structure between shares that you won as in packs, as opposed to just shares that you bought and sold on the market, so that theoretically experiencing the gold or the USDC value of your shares at a lower fee or higher fee, I don't know which one you would prefer, but to like have the fee structure be different for when you win versus when you buy and then sell.
So would you mean like if you won them from packs, you could sort of sell them
At
more
1%
freely, or
for zero?
for zero fee? I mean, technically it is possible. It's not possible in our current configuration, but
Yeah.
it could be done. I'm not entirely sure it's a good idea because
I'm not sure either. As soon as I started thinking about it, I was like,
well, what it
I
would mean
started
is
thinking about this about 8 seconds ago. So
yeah, I mean, what it would mean is like you would just probably you're more likely to sell your players that you get out of packs, which is fine. But we also want like it's good for the economy if like more people keep them and just use them to like win more.
Yep.
So one of the things we're going to do with like the promotion and cutting mechanic, it's not very well developed yet, but what we want that to be is actually like meaningful choices. So like more exciting. So like maybe if you cut, maybe you've got 12 players in your squad that you can either promote and cut, and you can like, right, I want to keep these 3 guys, but if I cut these 6, then I get bonus tournament points and I get free contracts for the players I do want to keep, and maybe you spin the wheel and you get like more tournament points, and just make that like more exciting and meaningful. Whereas at the moment it's a little bit kind of like busy work. But yeah, it's just like step 1 of like we wanted to make it so people wanted their rewards faster. We did that. Now it's like, okay, it's fine. Like you open the pack, you promote the player. It's an acceptable experience. Is it a world-class experience? No, it's not. And we will then iterate on it to like make it better and more fun than it is now.
What happens to shares that users cut?
They go back in the reward pool.
Oh, okay.
So they then get pulled again one day by someone who might want them.
Yep.
So yeah, if we can like incentivize people to cut, it's actually just good for the economy. Like it reduces that issuance. So if you feel like you won when you cut, because that gave you like contracts that you used on players and like saved yourself some money, or you got bonus tournament points, that's just good. So it's better if people are promoting players they want to keep than players they want to immediately sell. But equally, sell stuff like you sell, buy, and it is a platform where people are free to make money. So we do want to we've had to be quite restrictive early on, but ultimately the way we make money is actually transaction volume. It's not whether people buy or sell, because again, like looking back at how different our model is, we don't actually own the market, right? The market and the money in that market, transfer market, is actually just there for the sole purpose of users to trade into. It's not company money. So like the reason FDF is kind of bulletproof in that sense is that we don't mingle reward pool money and operational funds, right? We know we have 3 years of runway already, and that is not affected by the rewards at all. So like these debates of like, will FDF survive? Or in the traditional way, we have that about things like Football Index. It's kind of irrelevant. Like we have an amount of money that we use for operations. We actually never take in the reward pool money. So we're like, from that perspective, like rock solid. But it also results in a very different style of model that I think people are also trying to like get their head around as well.
Yeah. One of the things when you brought up the buyback site, we've obviously seen a number of third-party sites pop up. How have you guys kind of reacted to that from like internally? Is it encouraged? Well, I feel like it's always encouraging when you have users who want to create something like this, but are there things that are out there that you're like, we should really have that, or is it better to have that on third-party sites? Like, where do you guys kind of view the third-party ecosystem?
Yeah, good question. Generally supportive. I think, as you say, it's really cool. Like when people care that much that they actually spend their time like building these things. So we're keen to support them. it won't stop us doing some stuff ourselves. So like there's just some stuff that should be in the app. I think like taking the Red data example, I wouldn't want to build an app which basically doesn't work very well unless you have a third-party tool. I think anything that is essential for the game or very useful for the game, we should just build ourselves. So, for example, predicted lineups, they're going to be in our app. We're getting that data from Opta. You'll be able to see 5, 3, and 1 days in advance, like predicted lineups, injury reports, so you can avoid DMPs and whatever. All that stuff is just going to be in the app. We won't need a third-party tool. A lot of the stuff, though, is better when someone else does it. So some of the stuff like the June analytics, which gets shared a lot. One of the reasons we built this thing on blockchain, and why I would probably not build it without crypto, is that if you look back at some of the horror stories around like Football Index is always the best horror story to talk about. One of the problems, and I was one of the biggest content creators around Football Index. Like I spent like hours, like thousands of hours, like working on that studying that platform and like trying to figure out how it worked and trading it. Turns out I didn't understand it at all, because it was a complete black box.
I was going to say, I almost feel like you're not giving yourself enough credit. I don't think there was anything that it's not like you missed something. It's unknown, publicly unknown stuff. No?
Well, yeah. I mean, of the people that existed who didn't work and have the information, I probably knew the most, but it was actually impossible to really understand their business model. And they'd been going so long, you were like, well, surely there must be something right about this. Like they've lasted 5 years. As it turns out, it was insane. Like it was literally a kind of crazy model. And if you saw it, you would have been able to see it, like why it didn't work. And one of the problems was that you had actually no idea how much money they really had. So what they did was like, at the time where they were weakest and they were struggling for money, you think they pumped out promos because they were like, right, we've got to stimulate the market. We've got to get people in. We've got to get people excited again, because if we don't, we're dead. And at the time, people were debating, oh, well, if they're giving us money away, they must be in their strongest financial position ever. And that's what they were telling us as well. And it was bollocks, right? They're actually struggling, and they were using promo money as like a last throw of the dice to like try and stimulate the economy again. I couldn't do that if I wanted to, because everyone knows how much money we have. You look it up on June, and the fact that it's a third-party tool, and it's not run by me, in that case, great. And I don't want that responsibility either. I don't want I think it's bad, even for someone like the best of intentions. Like, if you're ever in a position where you feel like you should twist the truth to make the market better, that's just bad. Yeah. And I think anyone could fall into that trap. But here, the numbers are just there. They're just out there. So there's no temptation for anyone to try and fudge them. It also puts you under a lot of pressure. Like, you are basically your company success is judged by metrics that are not always fair. So depending on who I speak to, people are like, holy shit, you've built probably one of the fastest growing startups of all time. Or why is the number going down? What's wrong? And it just depends on perspective. So if you look at the June dashboard, because there's that massive candle on that day, it changes the whole chart. So if you go to the volume,
they all look the same, to be honest.
that spike there is just insane, right? So we did $850,000 of trading volume yesterday, and you can hardly see it. So people look in and go, oh, the chart's really quiet, and it's actually not. So the double-edged sword of this transparency is that people can get the wrong impression, because you don't actually have the chance to curate that information or like present it in a particular light or way. But maybe that's a good thing, you know. Ultimately, like I think people will learn how to interpret it properly, and life will go on. But overall, I think it's a great thing that this stuff exists.
The use of double-edged sword is kind of funny because I was like, this literally looks like the blade of a sword.
Yeah, I mean that is insane, by the way. Like that, this generally doesn't happen to crypto apps because there aren't many. Like this typically happens to like token launch pads or
Sure.
like DeFi protocols. The number of like genuine consumer apps that have done this in crypto is like definite. It must be less than 10. It's probably less than 5, which is quite remarkable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun to see. And also one of the things, it's the comparisons to Football Index, I feel like came up immediately when the game launched because everyone's like, oh, this is the same thing. And one of the things I really appreciated in speaking to you early on that you were like, I played Football Index a ton, and I think you looked at it as like, this is a game that works, but we should try to see if it actually, how to do it so that it actually works. And one of the first things you said, you were like, it has to be on the blockchain. Like everything should be public. And so it allows users to understand where the company is sitting right now. And that ability, or using the blockchain, then allows other people to build these third-party sites, not with data that comes directly from you, because you guys can put anything you want into an API. But allows people to kind of check and say, yeah, this is working or it's not working.
Yeah, I genuinely don't think I would build this without blockchain. For that reason, the transparency reason, but also like this FTF basically has like the security of a bank, right? Like it's really, really, it's a very difficult, challenging build, because it's got to be safe, and it's got to be secure. And building on the blockchain tech means that a lot of that layer is taken care of. Whereas if you built this like from scratch, I think it would take you years, and you'd need another $5 million to really get started to do it. But yeah, building on top of Base, which is Coinbase's chain, like they're very, very supportive of us. And it's the easiest, like it's the biggest brand name. So like one of the reasons we chose that is that when you're onboarding new users, everyone's heard of Coinbase. It's a brand they trust or know at least. So we're already thinking about like the free to play era, which we're going to kick off from next year. Free to play is live already. Actually, has 3,000 players, which I'm always surprised about because we haven't promoted that at all.
Yeah, no.
But from January, we're kicking off like Fantasy Football Scout partnerships, RotoWire, maybe a few others that we're talking to, and are gonna be like getting people onto the free to play, and also like going for more of a kind of when it is more stable and the product feels more ready, going out to a more mainstream audience. Whereas I think right now everyone is kind of like the guys we're picking up, or guys and girls are picking up, are mainly the early adopters, that sort of type who like to play every game. So like, I'm the same. I play MFL and whatnot. Won the cup yesterday, by the way.
Congrats.
Big moment for me. I actually cheered, and my wife came in and she was like, what's happened? I'm like, my team won the cup in MFL. And she's like, oh, I don't care about that at all. I'm like, oh, well,
my dots on the screen scored more than those dots. Let's go.
Yep, exactly. I was very pleased. So yeah, like you get the type of people who just play all these games. And I think that, there will be, there's not going to be just like one football game in the world, right? Like there's a lot of, particularly like this early audience will play all of them. And that's just fine by me. And I play a lot of them too.
There was a question about the buybacks that I wanted to get to, which I think maybe you didn't. But the question was, if you have a player generated a lot of fees at the startup until now, and then for whatever reason they never get bought or sold again, would any buybacks take place for that player using the historical fees earned?
Yes, they would. With the exception of Singo, who has been retired because he moved.
Midweeks though, he's still there.
Yeah, that's getting fixed. He shouldn't win.
Can we not? Does he not count?
Technically, he would, but he probably shouldn't. So we're just kind of hoping he doesn't win before we fix it.
Yep. Fair. But the question I had about the buybacks, like when those start, is that going to be something that you guys announce and you say we're going to buy back this amount for each player, or is it just organically happen? You said it was programmatic, but like, will we know? Obviously there's going to be a dashboard somewhere that is like, oh, this must be the buyback, but is there going to be a time where you guys specifically say buybacks start today and these are the players we're doing?
I haven't decided actually. I think that it's live now, so it's like it's already telling us like which trades it would make, and we're just sort of checking to see it looks sensible.
Okay.
And then once we fund the wallet, it will just start making trades, and you'll see them. So you will know which wallet is the buyback wallet, and people will just start tracking it, and they'll make a tool. And that's how it is. So that's the benefit of it being on chain. They'll just see what happens. So I don't know whether it's good to make like a big song and dance about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be the case that we turn it on and the market goes green.
Right.
But you will see like over 2 or 3 weeks, it's just a constant buy pressure on players. And it makes a difference. It makes a way bigger difference than I thought it would make originally once we did the simulation. And it's the same reason human brains don't really get compound interest, like just like that constant pressure of it like churning over and over and again, like constantly, does have a very noticeable impact on the market.
Is there a time frame where you hit the 40%? Like, do you have to do it in a certain amount of time, or is it just like at some point that money's spent?
It looks at like the last week. So like the future facing ones look at like the last week, and it makes like many micro trades. So you can't be like, oh, I figured out that the bot buys at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And I'm going to front run it. Like to stop people doing that, if it says, right, there's been $10,000 of volume on Yamal in the last week, so I need to spend $4,000 on Yamal, it will just do that over like, it could be 500 trades over a period of time, and it will do it quite randomly, so you can't predict it. And at trades that small, there's a really limited amount of funny business that people can do with it. It just kind of does its thing in the background. And yeah, that's why we've designed it in that way. And it doesn't just send Yamal on a day. It's like just a very gradual background force.
And it's not like it's waiting for a specific price to hit for them to buy.
No. It's kind of, there's a very limited amount of gaming you can do with it other than know it's there and feel better about it.
Yeah. I've taken up a good amount of your time, but I'm still going to ask one last question.
Sure.
What's kind of the most surprising thing that has happened for you since you guys launched Pro that you were just like, "Why I did not expect that," to whatever it is? I mean, I think the way that you guys distributed the players, and you warned about the volatility before, like you knew what was coming. So I'm not going to let you be like, wow, the number's bigger than I thought. But like through the whole process, and maybe it's something just very minute that you're just like, oh, I didn't realize this. But like, has there been something that surprised you quite a bit since you guys launched?
I guess the difference in that you kind of expect it, but you are surprised perhaps at like how short-term minded everyone is about products like this. So like 1 minute you're like, you built the greatest game in the world. 2 days later, the number's gone down and everyone's sad and depressed. And oh my God, FDF's going to die. And you're just sat here going, none of these things were true. Like we had not built the greatest product in the world. We are not going to die either. This is actually something we want to work on. I'll probably work on this. If I could, I'd work on this the rest of my career. Like I love it. There's nothing I've ever done that is more fun than building a great sports game to me. It's also like hard, like, you know, you like, I think when you are at the center of that storm and you're trying to like work out which feedback is relevant and which is just people crying because they did stupid stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's really difficult. But I think one thing, we've got a really good team, like, who are pretty resilient, and they understand the game. So it's quite easy for us, I think, to pick out the signal from the noise, because we know which issues are like genuinely important, and we know when it's just people trying to pressure us into like doing buybacks because they want the number to go up. And we will do it, but we will do it at a time where it's good for the whole product. So like that resilience factor, I think, is really underestimated. Even if you think you're resilient, it is hard. Like actually, when you are at the center of that storm and everyone's like kind of on your case. And I think what I try and remind the team is we've actually done really well. Like 55 million trade volume, in total, over $6.5 million in revenue. Nearly 4 million of that is in fees. Last Thursday, we took 400K from the pack sale, which just all went straight into the market. Like the numbers are kind of crazy. And yet you still see people being like, oh, when are you going to start marketing, guys?
I love that one.
And you're just like,
love it.
Oh, well.
Seriously though, when marketing? No, I'm just cool. No, I'm excited. I continue to be. I feel like the advice that I see people give is kind of like zoom out on the chart, one of those, and it's like that, almost like you said, you have that candle, and then but if you just look at like beginning to now, and even if you just did like a slow growth from there, people be like, oh, that's really impressive. And I think the enthusiasm that I see with the people that I talk to about the game, like they're really into it. And I don't know if they're really into it because they're like, man, if the number can go up that high once, maybe it can do it again, or they just really love the game. And the new scouting feature, I think, will obviously lead to plenty more questions. So when that goes live, I'd love to have you back so we can go through it and teach everyone how to use it.
We're tracking November for scouting.
Okay. But next month.
Yeah. Life comes at you fast in this game.
Good last question here. When FDF kits for good lads?
Let's throw on. We actually took delivery of these. So blame Rix. Rix is currently sitting on 300 of those kits. So if you all actually open tickets individually in Discord and tag Rix with when shirts, that will make them come faster.
That definitely makes people move faster. Yep. 300 tags on Discord. Anyway, Adam, thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate all of that. Thanks everyone for watching, whether you are on X, YouTube, Twitch, wherever it is. Appreciate everyone doing that. Good luck with all of your rewards and trades, and don't forget to go outside.